If your backups are not tested, you do not have backups. You have assumptions. So, if your backup strategy is an external hard drive and a few minutes to move all the day's files over, you might need a second look. Let's start it up. Hello, and welcome to Stack and Startup Alfresco. Today, I want to talk to you about something that almost every business thinks they have handled, but very few actually do: backups. More specifically, the difference between having backups and having usable backups, because those are not the same thing. And the gap is where businesses get into serious trouble. Let's start with the false sense of security. Ask most business owners, do you have backups? The answer is almost always yes. Yes, we do. But when you follow it up with, when was the last time you tested them? That is where things change. Because in most cases, they have never actually tried to restore anything. And that creates a dangerous situation. Because backups are not about storage, they are about recovery. If you cannot recover your data, the backup has no value. According to Veeam's data protection report, only 55% of backups are actually recoverable when needed. Let's think about that. Nearly half of businesses relying on backups may not be able to restore them successfully. That is not a technical issue. That is an operational risk. So, why do backups fail? Let's break this down why this happens. First, backups may never be verified. Most backup systems run automatically. They'll generate a pleasing success message and promptly get ignored. But backup completed does not mean the data is intact, that files are usable, and that systems can be restored quickly. Without testing, you are trusting the system blindly, and none of us like to do that. Second, no one owns the process. Since backups are often set up once and then forgotten, no one is really responsible for checking them, for testing them, for validating recovery options. So when something goes wrong, it is discovered way too late. Third, the complexity increases over time. As businesses grow, more data, more systems, and more integrations build upon each other. Backups become even more complex. And complexity increases the chance of a misconfiguration, an incomplete backup, or failed restores. Fourth, the assumptions replace verification. And this is the core issue. Businesses assume if it stays backed up, we're fine. But in IT, assumptions are always expensive. So, what happens when backups fail? This is where it becomes real. When backups fail, you're not dealing with a simple inconvenience. You are dealing with data loss, with operational disruptions, and most importantly, financial impact. That is not a small risk. Even at smaller scales, loss of customer data, financial records, and operational systems, they can create major downtime, compliance issues, and trust problems. And often the assumption is we'll just restore the backup until that fails. According to Dado Globo, State of the Channel Ransomware Report, many businesses hit by ransomware believed they had recoverable backups, but they discovered gaps during recovery attempts. And at that point, you are out of options. So, what separates businesses that recover from ones that do not? The answer: testing. Testing answers the real question. If something breaks tomorrow, can we recover? Not theoretically, actually. What testing looks like: restoring files, restoring systems, verifying the data integrity, and measuring recovery time. Because recovery time matters. If it takes hours, manageable. If it takes days, disruptive. If it takes weeks, it is damaging. According to Statista ITIC data, 98% of organizations say a single hour of downtime costs over $100,000. Now, this is for large organizations, but that does illustrate a little bit of the scale. But the principle is consistent. Speed of recovery matters. And you only know that if you test. So, with that, why do businesses avoid testing? Let's be direct here. Testing is often avoided because it takes time. It feels technical and it can be uncomfortable because testing might reveal problems in your systems. And most businesses would rather assume things are working than to confirm that they are not. But avoidance creates bigger risk because problems do not disappear, they lie in wait. I worked for a company that had a massive ransomware attack. They were unable to access customer data for weeks. Production came to a halt as they needed to make the decision on if they should pay the ransom. If they had a good backup plan that was tested regularly, they could have just been down maybe a day, maybe less. This was also at a time when they were going through a major buyout, which could have affected the bottom line. Now, that location was able to survive, likely due to the events already put into place. But the fact is, it could have gone south very fast. I myself had concerns about the future of that company because of that, and a few other stories I might have had a chance to tell in future episodes. So, if you take nothing else from this, first, ask one question: when was the last time you tested your own backups? If the answer is unclear, that is your starting point. Second, test regularly. Not once, not occasionally, consistently. Third, define recovery expectations. How fast do you need systems back? What data is critical? Because not all recovery is equal. Fourth, treat backups as a process, not just a checkbox. Know that backups are not about prevention, they are about preparation. You do not need to avoid every problem. You are making sure that when something goes wrong, you can recover. And that is what resilience actually looks like in business. If your backups are not tested, they simply don't exist. And it is better to find out now than when you actually need them. So, to bookend all of this, if your backups are not tested, they do not exist. And it is better to find out now than when you actually need them. And I want to thank you for tuning in to Stack and Startup Alfresco. If you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can find us on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts to follow along as we continue to explore business and technology from a different perspective. Lastly, if you want to support these conversations directly, you can become a patron at patreon.com/stackandstartup. Until next time, keep thinking outside the box.